Hello again. It is Pod Sawthoth with me, Todd Beardsley, and you, Claire Reynolds. Hi,
That's
Claire.
me.
That's you. And we're here to talk about The Nameless City, a story written by H.P. Lovecraft, published in 1921, marking it as one of his earliest works. And it's pretty great. It takes place in the desert, and so, we're recording this in the summer in our garage in Texas, so we'll be nice and warm while we record it.
There are many parallels with the Texas sun.
Indeed. So, yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about this. Well, so I always forget. Do you want to talk about things other than the story at the top?
I don't think
I think
so.
we do. Well,
No.
Okay. You got nothing?
Yeah.
All right.
No, I like this one.
Oh?
Yeah, I did. I liked it. Well, I'm a sucker for any kind of Egypt archaeology.
And it's a Lost
thing.
City episode,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah. And it made me sad when I saw that, I read Wikipedia and they were like, this was his favorite, but nobody wanted to publish it. Everyone else hated it.
right.
It's like, oh.
I know.
And I get it, because I read it was saying because he just describes terror. He doesn't
Yeah.
actually tell you, he doesn't show you why you should be terrified. He tells you why you should be terrified.
Mm-hmm.
But I still feel like this may come as a shock to you.
Uh-huh.
Lovecraft is not my thing.
Wait, what?
Well, I
We're 38
consistently-
episodes in.
I consistently make fun of him. No, I don't dislike him, but normally he's a tell, don't show guy.
Yes.
Well,
That's
that's not what you're supposed to do.
And
Per all my journalism classes.
I am specifically avoiding his longer stories with longer word counts, which tend to be his later stories and tend to be better.
Yes.
So things like
Yes.
Call of Cthulhu and At the Mountains of Madness and Color Out of Space, like these all are longer stories. Shadow Out of Time, rather. And I don't know. Eventually we'll get to them.
How are we going to approach those?
I don't know, with dread.
I mean, are you going to read the whole thing?
I'm going to read the whole
We'll
thing.
talk about it?
I'm going to read the whole
Are you
thing.
going to go chapter by chapter?
I don't know. So Call of Cthulhu is pretty easy to split up by chapter-ish things. Like there's from what I recall, there's 3 or 4 distinct stories that go on in there. So that might be a split them up. Mountains of Madness. I mean, those mountains are big.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That'll be the last one.
All right.
And then we'll start over from the beginning. Or
then,
we'll just
then
devote...
we move on to Greatest American Hero.
We'll devote all our time to Greatest American Hero. A Lovecraftian tale of a fellow who finds an alien technology he doesn't quite understand.
Exactly.
Look at what's happened to me.
All right. So I have lots of notes on the history, which I think I'll save for a little bit later. Or should we just go through the story? Let's go
do
through the
it.
story. Okay, we'll go from the top.
Get into it.
All right. So Homeboy is an unnamed narrator. He is presumably an archaeologist. He has a lot of tools. He has torches. At first I thought it's like Lovecraft being, I'm so British, I call them torches. No, they're real, light them on fire torches.
That's what I assumed. British. Hey, governor, I got some torches here.
Torches, so we can eat our crisps.
I
and not be in the
apologize
dark.
to everyone in the Kingdom of Great Britain.
That's right. They are like...
Who's ever even heard of the Kingdom of Great Britain? I apologize to you right now.
UK is our number 2 demographic countrywide. So it goes US, UK, Canada, I think.
All right, so we've alienated
15% of
Yeah.
our audience. So yeah, but it takes place remote in the desert of Araby, and he's traveling alone. Well, he's traveling with a camel, and he's doing archaeology, kind of.
I don't. This is definitely one of those situations where I'm sorry, but I don't. Do you? I'm not an archaeologist.
No.
Nor have I. I don't know
I have
anything
watched
about archaeology.
an Indiana Jones
Right.
or two.
I have watched, yes. But,
An Alan Quatermain, perhaps.
but I'm pretty sure if you're just doing it solo, you're a grave robber.
Right. Or with a friend, as we saw in the house.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but you have to have like tools.
You
and
need like a
stuff and-
crew.
yeah.
And permits.
Exactly.
And things. In the content warning on the prior episode, I describe him as an imperialist foreign hobby archaeologist.
Well, it just cracked me up because he's like speed races through this entire thing.
Yeah, he's like, check it
Yeah.
out. Here's a tunnel.
Look at
I'm
this.
in.
Look at this. Yeah. How do I get? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Very little consideration of what is happening.
Nothing is
Just
left in situ.
Yeah. And I get it because
Right.
this is how I would be if you popped me into this situation. I would be like, what is it? What's next? Oh my God, look at this. I gotta go down this. And then the next thing you know, you're surrounded by mummified crocodile seals.
Crocoseals. And also like this is kind of the era of archaeology in the time is a science. It's more about plunder.
More of an art.
It's more of an
plunder.
art. Yes. I mean, there were real archaeologists, obviously, and there's real like paleontology going on.
Yeah.
But like compared to the archaeology and paleontology that goes on today, it's quite amateur. Everyone's like disturbing all the sites.
Oh, yeah.
And it's for fortune and glory.
Fortune and glory.
It belongs in a museum. As long as that museum will pay me.
And that museum is in Britain.
It's surrounded by run by white people.
Right. So he goes to the remote desert of Araby to find the Nameless City. So apparently he's been looking for it for a while. Like he knows where he's going. So presumably he's done research before he showed up. But then maybe he had a whole party with him. And he's the
he's
sole
the only
survivor.
One left. It's just him and that camel.
Him and the camel. And then we see a quote real early on from the mad Arab, Abdul al-Hazred, which is not a properly formatted Arabic name. And the quote is, "That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die." And this quote resonates a lot with Lovecraft people. Nameless City, as you mentioned, is not usually in anyone's favorite top 10, but that quote in particular gets repeated in a little work published in 1924 called The Call of Cthulhu. And Call of Cthulhu contains like about a paragraph version of this story and that quote. So this quote tends to be associated with Cthulhu much more than with the Nameless City. But it's the first introduction of Al-Hazred, as you may recall from The Hound, is the author of the Necronomicon. So he's a fairly important figure in the Lovecraft cosmology there. One of the most recurring human characters. He's outpaced by Randolph Carter. But Abdul al-Hazred is...
Little double A.
Yeah, double A. Cool. I was reading about like the format of the name and how it's not really real Arabic. It's like comic Arabic. It's someone who doesn't care about the language.
It would be like a nonsense.
It's nonsense.
English name or
This is a name that like Lovecraft calls himself in like when he was a kid, as when he was like playing pretend basically.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so, but the what is it in the Arabic translations of Lovecraft today, it is written correctly and he's like Abdullah al-Hazra, and that's it.
Okay.
Like that's how you pronounce it. So so they corrected in the Arabic but not in the English.
Go on, Todd. You're our guide.
All right, so so he talks about the Nameless City and how it's so nameless like a couple times. This is the first time he mentions how old it is, and he says like before the first of stones where Memphis were laid, and while the bricks of Babylon were yet unbaked, which I really like because it's very alliterative. It's very good, and it's so old it didn't even have a name. And then he talks more about how old it is and how like no one really wants to go there and it's cursed. It's cursed. Then just a little bit later on, he talks about how it's too old for Egypt or Meroe. Meroe is how I learned how to pronounce that word.
What is that?
It's I'm glad you asked.
That
Let's take a trip with on the Lovecraft Travel Agency, shall we? So,
dinosaur train.
dinosaur train. I will use the dinosaur train drop instead of my like choo-choo drop. All right, so a lot of these places are real. Egypt, as you may be surprised.
I have heard of Egypt.
No, it is real. It's not just make-believe. Modern human culture existed in Egypt about 8,000 years ago. And the early dynastic period, which is what we usually think of when we think of Egypt, started around 3150 BC. Babylon was around the 22nd century BC, so a little bit later, but not by much. And then he talks about Meroe and Chaldea, which are good polls. I hadn't heard of either of them. They're both ancient 10th century cultures. But that is, another 1,000 years later from Babylon. So they're definitely not contemporary with Babylon. And also, all of these things are like timed out in BC, and it's real dumb to have a calendar that has negative numbers, and it just bothers the hell out of me. It bothers the hell of a lot of people, especially when you're dealing with this period of human history. And so we shouldn't be using AD or CE or BC. We should be using HE, the human era, or the Holocene era. In the HE calendar, the year is currently 12,023. And so by the HEC calendar, the early dynastic period of Egypt was in 6850 HE. The Great Pyramid of Giza was built around 7400 HE. Babylon, the bricks of Babylon would have been fired around 7700 HE, and Chaldea and Meroe would have formed around 9400 HE. So like now it's all nice ascending numbers, and you can kind of tell much better, especially when you're reading them, how long ago it was, how long that is in between them, all of that. So I strongly recommend, if you care about this kind of thing, get yourself used to calculating dates in the Holocene era. There's a calculator. I will link it in the show notes. Also, Kurzgesagt makes a Holocene era calendar, like a wall calendar, which is very, very cool. And it splits up all of human history into 12 equally sized units for, each month. And so that is my rant on the Holocene era. Yes, Claire.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do you have
Are
any
we
questions?
doing a show?
Yes.
I had forgotten.
All right. So anyway, those are the real places that you can really go to, especially if you have a time machine, and then you go back. There are some fictional places also mentioned as relative to the Nameless City. And those are the ancient Iram, also known as Iram of the Pillars. This was first mentioned around 7500 HCE, so that would be contemporary around with the Great Pyramid. And it was popularized by the Quran in about...
Popularized.
It was in the Quran Cinematic Universe in 10,610 HE. And my guess, and I haven't looked, and I meant to look it up, but my guess is Lovecraft probably heard about Iram of the Pillars from the English translation of 1001 Nights. So that was translated in English in the early 18th century. So that's probably where he heard of this fictional, almost certainly fictional, legendary city. It's also called the Atlantis of the Sands. And it's very cool that it's called the Atlantis of the Sands. Yeah.
Thanks, Cliff.
Cliff, explanation, please.
Now, how do you know he has one?
$5 says he does, 10 says it's a doozy.
Yeah, you're welcome. Sarnath and Ib are also fictional cities.
We're still going. Okay.
Yeah, and that's it. This is it. They are fictional cities made up by Lovecraft himself.
What about saving big money at Minar?
Right. So as you recall, Sarnath is in the land of Minar, where you can save big money. And you can listen to episodes 13 and 14 of this very podcast if you want to get more into Sarnath. There was a doom that came there. Came all over Sarnath.
Oh, God, my parents listened to this.
Okay. Sarnath is in the prehistory era, and it's contemporary almost certainly with Hyborian Age, which is where Conan does his things, because Lovecraft and Robert E. Howard, who wrote Conan the Barbarian, were buddies.
That's right.
So, and that are all the historical references for the Nameless City and and so it's older than all that.
Okay. It's really, really old.
Right. And so like that begs the question, is like how old
is it?
the Nameless City? How old are the Namelessites? So yeah, he describes them as what, like lizard-like or reptile-like?
Well, he says what he says is reptile-like. Like crocodiles and seals.
Right. Which makes me wonder, does Lovecraft think that seals are reptiles?
Are seals just like smooth reptiles?
That's right, they're smooth boy reptiles. Yeah, throwing in immediately after describing them as reptilian, as like, like seals, seemed a little weird. They're described in the murals as this guy encounter. So he goes into one of the cooler temples and then finds like a tunnel, and he crawls down the tunnel and he sees that there's like these murals on the wall, and it's like a pictorial history of the Namelessites. They crawl everywhere, and that's why like everything is all cramped and low for him. And he like,
well, of course, he never states that. It cracks me up how he's like, will the reader get it? I don't know. I mean, at no point does the narrator think, these are super low because it's actually for crocodiles. It's like, no, it's just,
well, maybe it's like a little Easter egg.
people pretending to be crocodiles.
He does say it might be for people pretending to be crocodiles, because he's assuming this whole time that, this is a human city who worship these beings that they made up.
Which is a legit assumption to make.
Why not?
I mean, you wouldn't assume that
aliens,
it was crocodiles.
Or crocodile people or whatever.
Yeah.
It is very Lovecraft for him to like kind of go way out of his way to avoid jumping to like the sci-fi horror explanation of things.
Right. Well, he wants the reader to, could this possibly be? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So he posits that it's like these worshippers, these cultists who basically crawl around in emulation of the Namelessites and not actually the Namelessites themselves.
Right.
So he goes down this tunnel, and it is conveniently telling the entire history of the city and how it used to be awesome and now it sucks. Like
it's like anybody talking about Austin.
Right. That's right.
Where else would you rather live, where it's 93 degrees out, gloomy, and smells like queso?
Just be like Willie Nelson, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and then Tech Bros.
And then Dell.
That's it.
Thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
Just ruined everything.
Yeah, we worship frogs.
We worship frogs with eye stalks.
We were frog people.
Or possibly ourselves. We're frog people with eye stalks. Which, if you're not in Austin or familiar with Austin, this makes no sense to you.
Yeah.
I will post a link in the show notes to the frog. And so he goes down this tunnel. He goes down some steps that aren't really steps. They're more like, he goes down like a ladder, and he like makes a big deal of this. I have no idea how these crocodiles would have navigated that thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
and then his torch goes out. Mm-hmm. And yet he continues on.
He just keeps going.
in the blackness.
So this is evidence, Exhibit B, of this guy has been driven mad in the desert. Yeah. And he is the lone survivor of his expedition, where like
there was never a city.
He's just digging around in a dune or something. Possible. No, I like he can be mad and find a lost city.
I suppose that's true.
Yeah, you're right. His torch goes out, and so he's in pitch blackness, presumably. Yet he's still imagining that he can see.
Yeah,
which is like
it's a while before he starts to see the
luminosity and stuff.
Right? Yeah. So he's like, he's feeling the coffins,
the glass
with
and
the
wood coffins.
with the mummified reptiles. Like, how do you even know what you don't know? You don't know what you see.
I choose to believe he was hallucinating, but happened to hallucinate correctly. Like it's like an insight.
Right.
So in Call of Cthulhu, the role playing game, there is a mechanic for the insane insight.
Okay.
And it's something that the GM, the keeper of lore, which is what it's called. There's something that the keeper can throw at the characters if they're like real off base, and they're just like running into monster after monster. They're losing a lot of sanity. They have insane insight, which is a clue of like where to go next, basically. So that's what I think is happening here.
Okay.
Surrounded by these coffins and this giant tomb, and then he gets to this giant bronze doorway.
Yes.
And this explains the crazy wind and sandstorms that he was seeing. Yep, that's it.
I didn't do that very well, but I can't.
Don't worry.
Drop it in. Okay. Sandstorm.
So it turns out what I got out of it is that this door opens every night. Like when the sun goes down and the moon comes up.
The door opens every night, and then what? It just
And it blows.
Wind?
Yeah, wind. So like it is a portal. It was a physical portal to the Hollow Earth, which is where all the Namelessites, I think their ghosts went. I don't think they're physical beings.
Right.
I think they're like
because they would just come through the door.
Right. They would
presumably.
just walk through, right? Or crawl through. And no. So like they all go down into the Hollow Earth, and that's where they exist today as, incorporeal beings. But this door opens every night, and the wind blows out, and this is why he feels watched when he's out at night.
Oh.
Because they're ghosts and they're haunting the Nameless City, you see. And they're
Oh.
stirring up the sand, and this is why the camel gets all freaked out, because camels, as you know, can see ghosts.
Well, of course, yes. Camels and cats. Everyone knows
Everyone knows this.
You do not want to take a camel to an old Victorian house.
No.
I see dead people.
So he gets to the door, he finds this portal to, the Hollow Earth, and then approximately 1 million ghosts attack him, as far as I can tell.
A million
Genie,
ghosts
read it.
attack him?
1 million ghosts at the very end.
Because it just ends with
And as the wind
him
died
plunging
away,
into the ghoul-peopled blackness of Earth's bowels.
right,
But
because he hears them behind him.
Who's telling the story if he's dead?
I don't think he's dead.
Oh.
I think he somehow survived.
Okay.
At first, I thought he was dead. Okay,
Yeah.
First reading, I'm like, I thought he was dead, and then which made me think, so what's up with the camel? Like, what's the camel gonna do?
Oh, the camel's set free.
Well, yeah, unless he's like tethered, then he's fucked.
Oh. Well, presumably, if a camel wanted to, it could gnaw through a rope.
Probably. I don't know. I think the camel dies in the end.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
All right. Well, you can choose to believe that.
DoesTheCamelDie.com is what we need.
I'm with you. I think the camel's probably fine. Now, because he talks about, as you recall at the very beginning of the story, every time he feels an icy wind, blah, blah, blah. Every time he
so he's
sees
still
really steep
alive.
stairs.
Yeah.
So, like, he does remember all of this happening.
Yeah.
And so he must have survived. Which, kind of makes sense, because if they're really incorporeal, they would have no mechanism of, like, touching him or fucking with him other than the very, very strong wind that threatens to drag him in there.
Yeah.
But if he's plunged into the ghoul-peopled blackness of the Earth's bowels, to me means the sun came up, the door closed, thus it is now dark in there, right? Because he can no longer see the iridescence.
Oh,
of
how does
the
he get
inside.
out?
Just go, it's one way, it's one tunnel, so it's not hard.
No, but I thought there were times where he was talking about like a super big, like low cavern.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was trying. Okay, I was super confused because he was like, it was it was supposed to be like a giant area where people, I don't know. To me, it sounded like, when you go into a cave and there's those big cavern rooms and they always have names. It's like the crystal room or whatever. And it's cavernous.
Right. So like you think
he was saying that I thought he was describing at one point a cavernous area, but with a really low ceiling. And I was trying to imagine what that would even look like. Like, how would you? Because
I think the path.
Yeah.
So the path to the bronze door is a
Okay.
straight shot tunnel
Okay.
with the mural on the side,
Okay.
and then he goes in there, and then he follows the light, but then the light goes out because the door closes, and from there, he can probably stumble his way out. Like he's not. First off, he's not in direct sunlight, so he's got time,
Right.
and we all know he has like imaginary night vision.
Right.
So-
Yeah.
He could just like fear. Maybe he's like a drow. I don't know, and he could just see in the dark. and so he comes out presumably, and then recovers the camel
Okay. Right.
and tells
yeah.
the tale in Damascus or wherever he ends
Okay.
up going.
All right.
And that's the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of setting, not a lot of plot.
Yeah.
The horror is not particularly horrifying, but I did like I like it's all description, right? It's all setting description. So if you just read it for that, you will have a good time in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're like 12 and you think, "Ooh, what would I do if I found a nameless city?" You can play pretend all day long. With this
Yeah,
thing.
of course. And I just don't understand why he continues to go on. I mean, when your light goes out,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to make my way back the way that
As
I
a
yeah.
spelunker.
Exactly, as it says it.
What caves have you ever been in, Claire?
Well, let's see. The first cave I was ever in was, I don't know what it's called, but it's in Hannibal, Missouri.
Oh.
And it's the cave that Mark Twain used to hang out in, where he imagined Tom Sawyer and Becky Thatcher. Like, I think it appears in Tom Sawyer for the first time. That was the first time. I remember going in there, and then they're like, all right, we're going to turn out the lights.
Is it just a coincidence that it's named the Mark Twain Cave?
Is it named the Mark Twain Cave?
Yeah, that would have been weird for him.
So
is that where,
weird.
Is that where he got the name Mark Twain?
Yeah.
Because his real name is not Mark Twain. It's
Right.
Samuel Clemens.
So he just really liked hanging out in that cave.
We have caves here in Austin that we've taken. Everyone has to take their kids to at one point.
Yeah.
Usually on a field trip.
What's
Usually you have
the-
20 kids with you.
Yeah. Oh God. Yes. That was when I took the boy.
The boy.
On a field trip with his class,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, "Okay, now do not touch the sides of the caves."
Uh-huh.
And it was like 25 third, fourth graders,
Mm-hmm.
and I was so stressed out the entire time because all they wanted to do was touch the sides of the cave.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I was just like constant, and nobody else seemed to be concerned about it, but it was
Right.
just me. I was like, don't touch it. Hands off the side. Hands in your pockets. And everyone was looking at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
I did not want people to touch the sides of the cave.
Like if you take a third grader to Whataburger and
Right.
say, don't touch the side of Whataburger, obviously that's what they're going to do.
Oh, yeah.
I'm wondering if they would do better if they just didn't say anything at all.
Yeah. Probably.
Yeah. Yeah. But the caves in Austin are pretty cool.
What is that one that the big one up there on 35? Not Natural Bridge. I've been to that one
Inner
too.
Space.
Inner Space. That's it.
Inner
Inner
Space.
Space.
Not the hit Martin Short, Dennis Quaid movie.
Oh, can you hear me?
No tie-in at all.
I know. Why? Yeah. Why?
So yeah, go caving and also bring an extra torch. And by torch, I mean what you Yanks call a flashlight. All right, so that's the story. It sounds like you give it a 3 out of 5 stars, something like that. We don't really rate the stories.
We don't rate the stories. Of course, it brought up Arkham Horror, the card game, the living card game thing that we do.
Guardian of the Abyss.
Yes, where we cannot get
Ladies and
out of
gentlemen.
that thing alive.
Gentle listeners, Guardians of the Abyss is impossible. If you like losing games, play that game because, I mean, we've won the Blob That Ate Everything, which is hard.
Yeah.
It took us like 3 runs at that.
Yeah.
We've played Guardians of the Abyss probably 6 times now.
Yeah.
No, not even close.
No, I consider it a success if no one gets taken by the abyss.
Yeah, if you're not just like perma-killed,
Yeah.
then it's a win.
Yeah, taken by the abyss, for those of you that don't know, means that your character is gone.
It's super dead. And,
Yeah.
and all your allies are dead.
Yeah,
Like-
everything's gone. Like
Everyone's
yeah,
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real hard. Write in if you have a good cheat. Honestly, like if you have a good like character duo that you are good at with like Guardians of the Abyss and can like reason, because we always play 2-player. We never play 4-player, and I suspect Guardians of the Abyss plays a lot better with 4-player because it has the old kind of broken explore mechanic.
Yeah.
Where like you're rewarded for like just revealing the map, and with 4 players it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but we played it 2-handed once. We both had 2 characters, and I think we lost half of them to the Abyss by the end.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just us. I don't know.
Yeah, we're just bad at this game. That's fine. Well, in other news, this episode released lightning fast compared to our usual release schedule, so I don't have a lot in the mail. But I did mention Unnameable at some length on our Mastodon account. If you don't know, Mastodon is a microblogging site similar to Twitter. A little bit harder to use.
To what?
That bird site. It was super cool because we got noticed by a famous person. And that famous person is John Shirley, or should I say Bram Stoker Award winner, John Shirley. He is a horror, cyber, splatterpunk author. He's got like 80 plus writing credits across novel, TV, short story, and screenplays, most notably The Crow that he
Very
wrote.
nice.
So very important movie in my life.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. And now he noticed my podcast because he like boosted it and tooted it and did all the normal like Mastodon things you do.
That's awesome.
It was pretty cool. And we talked just like, we had like a very short convo back and forth. I'm definitely name dropping right now. But he pointed me at a collection that I didn't know that he had called Lovecraft Alive, which is an anthology of short stories that he wrote. It's all him.
It sounds like a disco album or something.
Do the song off.
Yes.
Yeah, it's from Hippocampus Press. And it's available at Finder Booksellers. Yeah, so thank you so much for the boost. And he's like legit Mastodon famous, like he's got thousands of followers, right? Which on Mastodon like translate, like if it were Twitter, it would be millions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
he's basically like the Katy Perry of
pretty much
Mastodon.
the Katy Perry of Mastodon. And he lives here in Texas. He lives in Houston. So
What?
yeah,
Oh, that's cool.
I know. So we should hang out sometime. So I'm pretty happy about that. So you too can follow us on Mastodon. We are at Podsawthoth, at defcon.social. If you know how Mastodon works, you will find it. If you don't, I will post a link in the show notes and you can click it, and then you can try to puzzle out how to join Mastodon.
We also have a Facebook page that sometimes I visit and update.
I don't know anything about that. Do the Facebook thing if you're already doing the Facebook thing. I'm trying to like be less, militant on my like, well, I'm not going to use Facebook because they hate democracy.
Well, it's the same way as like, I am the person in the family that handles Facebook. Tod is the person in the family that handles Amazon purchases.
Right. Yes. Claire refuses Amazon on account of their evil.
I am
reasonably evil.
No, I don't have an Amazon account. I just say, wow, I really sure wish somebody would order blah, blah, blah off of Amazon. It happens.
We have a YouTube channel now for some reason. Because YouTube just recently, I won't go into it too much, but there's like a YouTube podcast thing that apparently works with YouTube Music. I don't know how any of that works, but I publish there all the time now. I publish every episode there. I still need to fill in the back catalog, but whatever, I'll get around to it eventually. So maybe we'll do real video. I don't know. Oh, yeah, and you can email. And if you do, give us a hint on how to pronounce your name if you have a name. If you don't, problem solved. Well, thank you so much.
If you don't, then we know you look like a crocodile crossed with a seal.
Yes, and also like send in fan art of like what does a name?
Oh my God, yes, I definitely want that. Oh yeah, it better look cute.
Yeah,
like I'm thinking.
Just post it on Mastodon. Don't send it to me.
Yeah, I don't want that coming through the.
But like at me on Mastodon. So
like big eyes, you know.
Crocodile.